All right, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Ephraim. Today's date is November 4th, 2022. And if you listen to the sound of my voice, you are blessed to see another day, and for that, all praise, honor, and glory is due to the Most High God of Israel, creator of the universe, the heavens, and the earth, and everything in between, up top and below. All right, I dropped that video answering that sister, and because I slept a lot yesterday, so I was up late, and it was on my mind and my heart, following this Kyrie Irving thing. And then I remembered the sister with the video asking why we treated the way we are, so I did that video. So I thank you all for putting your input in that video, and it's really appreciated. And for all you new subscribers, welcome, and make sure all of you hit that subscribe button, right, and select all, so you'll be notified every time I upload a new video. And I don't care what it is, whenever I upload a new video, as a matter of fact, don't even wait for the notification. Y'all come by the channel every day, because I'm gonna be dropping them every day, a couple times a day, right? Let's not depend totally on YouTube, because the views still aren't matching up with just the new subscribers. So y'all click on the video, even if you don't comment, click on stream it, right? And let's get the viewership up, because all that has an issue with the with the algorithm or whatever. All right, so that's that. I appreciate you all. I really do. Thank you so much, and sincerely, for the support and the words of encouragement to all of you. This lesson right here, before I get into the lesson, I got to say this, man. I tell you, because this whole Ephraim Judah thing has been going on since way before the transatlantic. Seriously, we've been beefing way before the transatlantic. There's something about the spirit of Judah, man. Our Igbo brothers, first of all, I love all my brothers and sisters, all of the E1B1As, all the Bantus, right? But there's something about those Igbos, man, that just rub me wrong. And I don't know what it is, man, but I don't know, it's like the attitude. They have this arrogance about them, but they remind me of those brothers on the street corners with the Power Ranger outfits. Like they are definitely Judah. Like the spirit of Judah is different than, say, the spirit of Yoruba or the spirit of, one of the other tribes. There's something about Judah, man. Judah is just, they're very kind of arrogant, kind of. They vex me. They do. I mean, they just come at, they always saying something kind of foul, or whatever. They just, it's just this thing about them, and I can just kind of tell, Judah. I know I'm not Judah. I know I don't have that spirit like they do. I mean, it irritates me, and the Bible speaks to that, right? So I got a lesson on that. I'm gonna bring that forth about the Judah versus Ephraim / so-called black on black crime. That's all it is. Ephraim versus Judah. We've been beefing long before we got over here, or the transatlantic. Please believe. But this right here, though. But when it's all said and done, we're all brothers. We're all from the same seed. Jacob is our forefather, whatever you want to, however that goes, but we all from the seed of Jacob, man. E1B1A, right? So with this lesson right here, this is a really good lesson, because I had some things are going on with them that I didn't even know. So apparently the Igbos are recognized, and they have a spot in Israel called something Gad or Igbo Gad or something like that. They have their own synagogue and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, what? I didn't know that. But that's opening a huge can, though, because if they recognize an Igbo, they have to recognize us. Because how about 75% African Americans are Igbo? I'll say about 60, maybe 60, 65, and then you got Yoruba, or Yoruba up in there, and then but a good portion of slaves are Igbo. That's a fact. Okay, you can go to slavevoyages.org. Even with the names, but anyway, so y'all check this lesson out, and I hope y'all enjoy it. And shout out and love and peace to my Igbo brothers, my brothers and sisters in Yoruba, and my brothers and sisters all over Africa and all over the world. All right, Dr. Ephraim saying much love. Till next time, Shalom elect. All right, today we're going to tackle the Igbos. Okay, cultural proof, and even some archaeological proof of their ties to Israel. Now, just like the African Limba, for years, the Igbos have maintained, many of the Igbos, because what you all have to understand and is that even with the number of Igbos and Yorubas, all these different nations that the children of Israel mixed into, we are mixed into these Hamitic nations, okay? And like I said before, in a couple of my other presentations, all of those nations are secondary to our original nation, or the nation that we derived from as Bantus, okay? Yoruba, Igbo, Ghana, Cameroon, all these different tribes, right? The Bamileke, the the Iwe, all these different tribes, Hamitic tribe, we're mixed into these nations, all right? And while, I can kind of tell in terms of physical characteristics and physical features, who's Hebrew or Bantu, Negro or not, sometimes it's difficult. And because we're so mixed in. But the Igbos have always maintained that they were of Israel, from Israel, and there's a history there, right? And that they passed down, just like the Yorubas, like with the E1B1A 7A, when they said they fled from North Africa, right? And when they got to Yoruba, the Yorubans that were already there called them Imo Yokaim, which is a strange people. Because they spoke with a dialect of Aramaic and a mixture of kind of Arabic, and which I kind of said a while back that was weird to me until I discovered that Hebrew was done away with the Assyrians and replaced with Aramaic. I mean, the nerve of different nations throughout the whole ancient Israelite thing, before the Roman destruction of Jerusalem. I mean, just the nerve of so many nations to come into our holy city, uninvited, and try to, and throw their weight around, if you will, right? But going back a little further, well, I'm going to get into the history, right? A majority of your Igbos actually the ones that went into slavery by the way of the transatlantic slave trade. Now, I'm not going to say majority, but a good portion of Igbos are, are the ones that went into the slavery via the transatlantic slave trade, and that's why they're all over, from North America and America. African Americans are a lot of Igbos here by ancestry, whatever. And we know that they weren't the majority because we have the genetic proof. Now, genetically, the Igbos that are Israel or Jacob, we have the DNA proof with them as well. They're E1B1A. Okay, but here's the problem that all of us face. I don't care what secondary nation you claim. Okay, you can claim Igbo, you can claim Yoruba. We're all mixed in. But here's the problem that we all face all over the world as seeds of Jacob. Because I understand that the Igbos, to bolster their claim, they took DNA tests. And the DNA test came back that, no, you're not Israel, you're not Jewish. And the reason why it came back like that is because E1B1A is not recognized worldwide by the quote unquote powers that be as a Jewish / Hebrew haplotype or haplogroup. That's the problem. The two Y DNAs that they recognize worldwide, the so-called powers that be and the Jewish organizations, all these different people, the two Y DNA haplotypes they mostly recognize are haplogroup J or J1 and some of E1B1B, which is absurd because E1B1B is Hamitic and Edom, right? And again, don't ask me why, Edom attached to, Esau attached to E1B1B. I just know that he did. But anyway, that's the problem that we face. Okay, E1B1A, we know the Most High raised me up to bring that forth and uncover it. And of course, the powers that be are mad about it. But I mean, they have a lot more money than me. They have a lot more, their platform is much, much bigger than mine or whatever. So they can just put out the disinformation, continue to put out the disinformation as they see fit to keep our people hidden or ignorant, right? But that's the problem, my people, because the world does not recognize E1B1A as Jewish or Hebrew. And until we can change that, it's going to be an uphill battle and climb in terms of, yes, now we have genetic proof of who we are, but basically no one believes us. right? Because of the disinformation campaign and because of the the powers that be that are in control that called the shots, they phased our haplotype and haplogroup out. Ancestry, our family tree did say that E1B1A was present at the start of the ancient Israelite nations, but they tried to downplay us. That's the closest they got to giving us any kind of recognition as who we really are. They know the truth, man. They know the truth, okay? But that's the problem we face. So anyway, with that being said, let's go ahead and deal with this, man. These are our people right here, the Igbos. Let's get it. Okay, to get things started, I'm going to read an excerpt from an article that was printed on CNN. The name of the article is Nigeria's Igbo Jews, quote, Lost Tribe of Israel, question mark, by Chika Aduwa. The copyright date, February 4th, 2013. It says, the Igbo are one of Nigeria's largest ethnic groups with population estimates ranging from 20 to 50 million. Abuwa is convinced that the Igbo's ancestors were Jews. Quote, the son of Jacob was Gad, and I learned that he was among those people who went out of Israel to exile, Abuwa says. So from there he had a son called Eri, and a son gave birth to a son called Aguleti, and that's how the Igbo race began. End quote. Igbo race, really? Okay. From generation to generation, some Igbo have passed down various versions of a migration story framed around Jacob, or Jacob, the patriarch of Israel. A popular version of the narrative holds that Gad, the seventh son of Jacob, had three sons who settled in present-day southeastern Nigeria, which is predominantly inhabited by the Igbo. Those sons, Eri, Orodi, and Areli, as mentioned in the book of Genesis, are said to have fathered clans, established kingdoms, and founded towns still in existence in southeastern Nigeria today, including Aweri, Amulari, Arokahu, and Agulari. Please excuse my pronunciation with these names. I'm clearly not African, and I'm not, so forgive me for butchering the the names. Someone named Chukwuemeka Eri, the king of a community in Agulari, claims he presides over the throne of Gad's son, Eri, wearing a white shirt with Star of David stitched on the front, which we know that Star of David is not a good thing. That's not a symbol of Jewishness. That symbol came up in Zionism. I did a whole article, a whole presentation on that so-called Star of David. So y'all check that out. When y'all get a chance. That Star of David we should stay away from. But clearly they think it's a sign of Jewishness. So I get it, but it's not actually. King Eri points to a calendar on the wall of his palace that lists the names of his 33 predecessors. He has no doubts that Eri is his ancestor. He has even acquired land to establish an educational center for the study of Jewish culture. King Eri, like many, claims that the Igbo are the Jews of West Africa. Now, when you say the Jews, that kind of implies that they are the only ones that are of Israelite descent, and that's not true, and that's not accurate. So I reject that implication that they are the Jews of West Africa. They are members, right? But they're not exclusively the only group of so-called Africans that are Israelites mixed in West Africa. So I reject that implication. They are some of many that are scattered into those other nations, but they are not the sole exclusive descendants of Jacob. All right, so I'm knocked that off. That's madness. They believe they are descendants of at least one of Israel's lost tribes. In the 8th century BC, the Syrians invaded Israel's northern kingdom, forcing 10 tribes into exile. Historians say it is not unlikely that these tribes migrated westward to Africa. Throughout history, large populations of dispersed Jews also became quote-unquote lost through forced conversions and cultural assimilation, no doubt. Quote, there is evidence that is scientific that the Igbos descended from the people that evolved in Israel, says Remy Yona. He began investigating the stories from his youth more than a decade ago. Quote, when I grew up, I heard, like virtually every Igbo here, that the Igbo people came from Israel, the Abuja-based lawyer says. His field work in Nigeria, Chad, Niger, and Mali led him to conclude that Igbo and Jewish culture are not just similar, but identical. In his latest book, Iona draws parallels between Igbo rituals and customs and those practiced by Jews. Shared traditional practices, including circumcising male children 8 days after birth, refraining from eating unclean or tabooed foods, mourning the dead for 7 days, celebrating the new moon, and conducting wedding ceremonies under a canopy. Some historians have noted that the Igbo were practicing these customs before their exposure to the Bible and missionaries. Exactly. So where did they get it? Because they sure weren't taught that by any kind of Christian missionaries. In his latest book, Yona draws parallels between Daniel Liss from the Institute of Jewish Studies, University of Basel, Switzerland, is one of the foremost researchers on Jewish identification among the Igbo. He says there has been a clear continuity of Jewish identity among the Igbo. It's not just something that happened yesterday, he says. The Swiss Israeli anthropologist says the Igbo Jewish identity can be traced back to the 18th century. Cross-cultural comparisons have been documented by people ranging from George Thomas Spadsden, the influential Anglican missionary and ethnographer, who proposed that the word Igbo evolved as a corruption of the word Hebrew, to Oloduwu Akinyo, a freed Igbo slave living in the 18th century British society. The oral studies and historic notations of cultural resemblances between the Igbo and the Jews have proven compelling enough to lure a diverse array of people to southeastern Nigeria. Michael Freon, an American Jew based in Israel, is planning his first trip there. I've read about them, quote, but of course there's nothing like actually hearing the stories. He is the founder and chairman of the independent nonprofit organization ALL Israel. According to its media spokesperson, Arik Puder Shlavai, Israel is the only organization in Israel that focuses on finding descendants of the legendary lost tribes. He says the Israeli government does not recognize ethnic communities in various countries claiming to be descendants of lost tribes. Quote, they cannot prove that they have a Jewish grandfather or grandmother, Puder says, but they do have an interesting story. And let me just stop there. And that's the main problem that we have, my people, brothers and sisters and sojourners of Israel. The so-called powers that be, they get to determine, who are Jews and who are not. And that's the problem. So they can know the truth all they want to, but they don't have to accept it. They're in control right now. We are powerless. Okay, we know that E1B1A are the true Jews of Israel, right? And I mean, until or unless someone can make some kind of move legally to prove that, using the Bible and our DNA to prove that that's who we are, that's how it's going to be, and probably until Yeshua returns, because we are not in control. We are not in power. They are, and they get to call the shots. They get to say who's Jewish and who's not. They get to reject us. They get to, they get to say, well, if you want to come here, you got to convert to Judaism, which of course our Igbo brothers and sisters rejected that. They're like, we're not converting to something that we naturally are. Y'all done lost y'all doggone mind. And I totally agree with them. But because they are in control and they call the shots, that's what we have to deal with. See, that last line, they can't prove they have a Jewish grandfather or grandmother. See, that's that madness. We can prove we from Jacob though. How about that? You know what I'm saying? How about that? We can prove genetically that we're from the seed of Jacob. We are children of Israel. Okay, and we can prove that those DNAs that the world recognizes as quote unquote Jewish or as Hebrew Israelites are not so, right? But that's where we are, my people, and that's why they don't let so-called ethnic groups in all these different African countries and stuff like claim Jewish ancestors, because they know that they are. They know in their heart of hearts who the true Jews are. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. But because they're in power and because they have the land, they have the money right now, they are on top, man. Okay, it's sad, but I guess it's just not guess, but that's part of the curses. Okay, because our ancestors didn't want to do right and hearken unto the voice of the Lord. And so he told us this is going to happen. We are on the bottom when we should be on top of every nation, but we're not. We're on the bottom. So, that's where we are with that. Okay, so on to the next segment. Now, this is really interesting. In a White House memo dated Tuesday, January 28th, 1969, to then President Nixon, wow, former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger describes the Igbos as, quote, the wandering Jews of West Africa, gifted, aggressive, westernized, at best envied and resented, but mostly despised by their neighbors in the Federation. And that stands for Foreign Relations Document, Volume E5 Document on Africa, 1969 through 1972. And real quick, just to add to that, if you all aren't familiar with the Biafra tragedy, please Google that. That was a civil war. They was killing our brothers and sisters, man. I believe that because the Biafrans are the Nigerians that wanted to succeed Nigeria. I believe that was the E1B1A. I believe those were the Israelites, the Biafrans. And I believe that the ones that rose up against him, I believe, were to be the Hamitic part of the Igbos. So that's my personal belief. Now, you can Google the Biafra tragedy and find out exactly what happened and get the the full story on that. But I wanted to kind of add that in because when it said that, I was like, yeah, they were definitely resented and envied. We had got that spirit of Judah, man. We just didn't. We wanted our own thing. We didn't want to be up under their rules. So I believe the Biafrans were actually the Israelites. It says here, Israel Today originally reported this is back in 2006, how Chief Rabbi recognized the Igbos as sons of Israel. Wow, I didn't know that. I literally just learned that. But this Chief Rabbi back in 2006 recognized the Igbos as sons of Israel, descended from Gad. And indeed, there's an Igbo Gad community in Tel Aviv, Israel, who have their own synagogue. I did not know that. Wow. Haaretz magazine in October 12, 2005 article declared the Igbos to be sons of Israel through Gad. Professor Elizabeth Asichi, an Australian historian, and Melville Maskovitz, an American writer, all strongly believe there is enough evidence to link the Igbos of Nigeria to the Israeli tribe of Gad. Among Igbo authorities, Professor Alizi and Remy Yona also believe without a doubt that the Igbos are descendants of Gad as well as other tribes of Israel. Now, with that being said, if that is true, now this is back in 05 and 06, I don't know what changed because as of recent, they were saying that genetically the Igbos weren't Israel and this and that. But if this is true, that is a huge step for the E1B1A because or the E1B1A being recognized worldwide as a Hebrew or Israelite haplogroup, okay, because that was our problem before. We weren't recognized genetically, that is, right? So if that's true, if that's still true today in some kind of way, that's something we can build on to get the E1B1A finally recognized and finally, in essence, getting us recognized finally for who we really are. We aren't just slaves. We aren't just African Americans or this and that, all these different titles. We aren't just, all these different groups that we're mixed into with all these different titles and names that they've given us. We're not that, okay? So that's a huge step in that direction if that's true. Okay. I didn't know that. I honestly did not know that. But the cultural evidence of linking Igbo to Gad, it says in 1789, Alodu Akinio, an Igbo and former slave who lived in London, said in his autobiography that the Igbos were one of the lost tribes of Israel and cited the many identical cultural similarities between them and the Jews. Said when the missionaries came to Nigeria to evangelize, they were dumbfounded or confounded, right? To discover that the Igbo people practiced many Hebraic Jewish customs which they could not have learned from anyone else. It had to come from ancient practice of their people from antiquity, for they had no Bibles, and met no one with the Bible until the missionaries came along. How about that? How about that? Awesome sauce right there. They found that the Igbos practice eating of animals that meet the biblically clean requirements, as well as the complete draining of blood from the animal, as well as other laws concerning kashrut, or kosher animals, has a concept of clean and unclean, acceptable and abominable, or taboo. Animal sacrifice, like unto the Levitical sacrificial system, belief in a supreme, all-powerful deity, the Chukwu, above all other deities, or the oneness of God, right? Circumcision on the eighth day, as well as had the naming ceremony of the eighth day old child, giving names that bear the name or title of God within it. Remember, those who are called by my name, huh? Come on now, let's get it. Separation of administrating women, the keeping of a lunar calendar, Shemitah and Jubilee years, the annulment of debt and servitude every 7 and 50 years, burying their dead, facing the east, the direction of Jerusalem and the promised land, sitting Shiva, 7-day mourning period where one sits on low stools, remains unkempt, and shave their head in grief. Belief in resurrection, sending of the bodies home of Igbos who die outside of Igbo land to be buried like Joseph and Jacob, desiring not to be buried in a pagan or foreign land. Hospitality, like unto the traditions and legends known of Abraham offering water, meal, and lodging to travelers. And Levirate type, or Levirate type marriages. What does that say? Brothers marrying deceased brothers' wives. Yeah, that's definitely Torah. To carry on the bloodline. Yes, that's definitely Torah. As a matter of fact, the Most High, real quick, this is kind of sidebar, but I remember when the Most High got angry with what was that guy who was supposed to have lay seed with his brother's wife because his brother died, but he pulled out. I think his name was Onan. Onan pulled out. He pulled out. He was having sex with her, but he pulled out and laid the seed on the ground. Basically, he ejaculated on the ground and made God mad. Onan, O-N-A-N. I'll look that up. That's a trip. But yeah, that's definitely Torah. The deceased brother's wife to carry on the bloodline. But yeah, that as far as the if that's true, what I just read to y'all, then that's a big step towards the E1B1A being recognized as a Jewish haplotype or Israelite haplotype. All right, on to the next segment. So the children of Israel, as you all may or may not know, were cursed to go back into slavery on ships, and we all know that the transatlantic slave trade was that event that happened that transported the children of Israel and dropped them off all over the transatlantic and the world. And of course, like I said, the Igbos were a big part of the transatlantic slave trade, right? And so were the Yorubas. Probably a couple of other little tribes in there, here mixed in here and there, whatever. Because I know the West Africa was the slave hub, but and they took a lot of Igbos, but they also took Yorubas. They took so-called Africans from Ghana, from Cameroon, from all these different West African small countries and tribes. So, and we know that that's true because we have the different subgroups of E1B1A, which represents the different, kind of tribes we come from, and the fact that, we could procreate among each other and not have genetically messed up kids, within our tribes or whatever. So the Igbos being E1B1A, they kind of have they spearhead in the way, and much props and respect to them for that, because basically, what I read in the previous segment is true. If they are still recognized to an extent as a tribe of Israel, well, that makes all of us E1B1A all over the world one step closer to being recognized, our E1B1A haplotype and haplogroup being recognized as what we are, which is Israelites. Okay, I would love to see someone build on that, because yeah, that's one step closer for us all. So if the Igbos win, leading the way, then we all win, because they're us. We're all brothers and sisters. We're all from the same seed. We are all children of Jacob. Right, so I really would love someone to kind of build on that, man. That's pretty awesome, because that's what's really holding us back. Because like I said, the last I heard, they wanted the Igbos to, because a lot of the Igbos wanted to go back to Israel, like as of recent, and they were kind of like saying, well, yeah, well, okay, we were kind of like, yeah, you can come back, but whatever, but you have to kind of convert to Judaism. And of course, a lot of our Igbo brothers and sisters, they push back on that. They're like, no, we're not converting to something that we are. That's our nationality. Like the nerve of y'all, like what? So so I really hope someone can build on that, man. But there you go. Our Igbo brothers and sisters, man, they are us, we are them, we're all together, okay? And to those brothers who talking that foolishness, there are a bunch of us over in Africa still, Israelites that is, millions of us still over there, okay? So don't listen to those brothers running their mouth talking stuff that they don't know nothing about, okay? There are a lot of Igbos still over there, Israelites, a lot of Yorubas over there still Israelites, brothers in the Bamileke, right? The Jah, the Iwe, all over. So we're all over West Africa still. All right, brothers and sisters. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little lesson on the Igbos, whatever the case may be. So until next time, this is Dr. Ephraim signing off, saying Ahaya by Yeshem, Yeshua HaMashiach, Baruch Atu Adonai, Shalom, elect.